Talking financial organization and a professional practice does not have to be boring. Are you ready for a few money in, money out ideas? It's Susan Gunn coming directly to your head to make you think. Can you handle the truth? Because she is known for being energetic, laughs a lot, and gives honest, sometimes direct, but always practical advice. It's time now for Money In, Money Out.
It appears that some are going back to work in the next few weeks in our nation's variety of businesses on a variety of dates. We've learned quite a bit about COVID-19 these past few weeks, and the medical community has made great strides in knowing how to treat patients. My kudos and thanks to that medical community that has stood the gap in really perilous, unknown times, putting their own health at risk in many situations, their family at risk, and we have lost some in the medical community. This has come with a death toll, and none of us ever anticipated that. In fact, this whole past 2 months, nobody has anticipated, not to mention the remaining months of this year. We don't know what to anticipate then. With businesses opening, though, that does not mean business as usual. There are so many safeguards going into place. Just because we're opening businesses does not mean the coronavirus has suddenly disappeared from our landscape. It's still out there. Our nation may never be the same. It will look entirely different. The fallout for the past few months financially will take many years to recover from. Some businesses will permanently close, some that we know and love as a result. And the oil and gas industry is just now laying off their millions of employees. The House is due to vote today for additional PPP funding for small businesses. I've beat that horse to death the last 6 episodes. So I'm not going to talk about that. We don't know what's going to happen, except that I think, my personal opinion, is the definition of small business needs to be redefined. 500 or less seems a little bit too broad, as we found most of the money went to larger corporations. What a maddening time. And if you try to make sense of it all, well, guess what? You can't. I've spent many restless nights trying to make sense of it. Doesn't work. There are so many questions as what needs to be in place when you return to practice. And one of those topics, a really hot topic right now, is insurance. Today, I have Teresa Duncan of Odyssey Management with me. She is a longtime dear friend, colleague, sidekick, troublemaker. She is also an author. She has written Moving Your Patients to Yes, Easy Insurance Conversations that is available on Amazon. She is also a professional speaker. And Teresa, welcome to my podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. I love that you have your own now and I can sit back and relax.
You could say you knew me when.
That's right.
When I was just a guest on everybody else's podcast. It's going to be fun. You're listening today to two friends chat about insurance. And you'll see that we have a great relationship. In fact, everybody I've had on my podcast with, I have a really good relationship with. And so it helps when you know your peeps and you know their strengths. And insurance is definitely your strength, Teresa.
Yeah, I'm a geek. I love it. I can't help it.
Yeah, I know. You are a geek. Well, the first thing I want to talk about, because you were the one that really put the spotlight on what was happening with Delta Dental. On the insurance. Is there anything new in that arena?
Well, so since the ADA and various other dental offices have sued Delta, that was way back before Thanksgiving. I've been waiting, and the associations have been waiting for some sort of comment from Delta, and there really hasn't been anything. So I don't expect there to be really any movement on this. I think now it's just the lawyers doing lawyer stuff. And, when Delta was sued by California, it took about 7 or 8 years to finally solve it. Yeah. So I don't necessarily think we're going to hear anything. And right now we're hearing a lot from Delta, but not on the lawsuits. There's a lot of stuff coming out from Delta as far as helping and loans and grants and all of that. So we can get into that, but I am pleasantly surprised that Delta is stepping up and doing some good stuff for the offices. And I want to talk about the repayment and all of that with you, because from an accounting point of view, You probably have a lot more say on it than I do. So are you aware of all these grants?
No, tell me.
So there are several states, and you'll have to check your state. If you're a provider, you can log in behind the scenes and log into your specific Delta. And some states are giving a repayment. So it'll be an ability to get either 1% of your whatever you got for the month, 1% of that as an advance on payments, so to ease the cash flow. And then what will happen is they'll take that back out of upcoming claims. So it's all done electronic transfer. So you're not going to be able to take advantage of it if you're not signed up for EFTs. But what will happen is they'll advance you a certain percentage. I've heard 1%, I've heard 5%. It really depends on the state. So they'll take what you're normally paid in 1 month and give you a percentage of that. And then when this kind of goes to pass, I'm guessing probably third quarter or fourth quarter, they'll start taking the money back in their payments, which means the accounting is going to be really, really screwy. And you're going to have to come up with an adjustment to show that in the practice, because you'll make a payment on Kelly Smith, and then Delta will have removed some of Kelly Smith's payment, but you still have to credit Kelly Smith the full amount. So it is going to be a little bit of a challenge when those start rolling back.
Wow. Yeah. So I wrote that down. So you podcast listeners, I will figure out how that needs to be accounted for, because that's going to be from so Teresa's married to a certified fraud examiner. And so she knows this whole certified fraud examiner part of my brain really well. And so from a fraud standpoint, it's going to be essential that we figure out how to track that.
And, we may need to do just maybe a follow-up with some more information on specific states, and we can certainly do that, because I know I just sprang this on you. Don't you love it?
She didn't tell me we're going to talk about this, by the way. Thanks, Teresa.
I know. Well, that's why you love me. So those are the repayments. And then there's also for nonprofit dental centers, some Delta in some states are giving actual grants.
Oh, wow.
So offices being, for profit, that's not going to really affect them. But there is absolutely the not-for-profits that are getting some help from Delta.
So those would be the nonprofit dental clinics.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So, and that's really good too. I mean, that's really who is going to need that. I mean, everybody needs it. I'd love a grant from Delta right now, but
wouldn't we all?
Not going to happen. And the other thing that Delta's kind of coming through with is this whole, there's New Jersey and Connecticut Deltas are indicating, and I will believe it when I see it, but they are indicating that they're going to pay for 2 months infection control fees. So just in the interim, and I believe it's something like $10 an appointment. So that's something that I need to get worked up and put into either an article or a post on Facebook so people are aware of it. And don't get used to that though, because they were very clear. This is only for a certain period of time.
Wow, that would be awesome. That would really help.
It would really help, but I also I really believe in setting your fees so that you're profitable. And I just know if you're in a PPO, this is not going to help. I mean, once these interim infection control fees are taken away from being paid, are you going to charge the patient for it? And if I'm a patient, I'm not going to be happy with that. I think you need to build it into the cost of the fee. And, there's two sides to every story. It's just, I'm not saying you're wrong if you do it, but as a consumer, I don't know if I'd like that.
Yeah, that's going to be, again, all of those things are going to change. I don't think I would mind paying from a patient standpoint. And I'm not atypical. I guess I am. But anyways, I don't think I'd mind that if they were going to take extra precautions, because we know what we've been through.
Well, would you feel differently if, say, your grocery store charged you an extra 10% of your bill? Yeah. So, I see counterpoints and points on both sides. So it really does.
In my grocery store, I can wear gloves and a mask. And it would be really hard for my teeth to be clean to wear a mask. So,
but I'm just saying they're gloving up and taking precautions. Your stuff isn't infected. So, like you said, see, we could go.
Yeah, I know. It's like I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well, tell me other things that are changing in the insurance industry because of all this COVID-19 stuff.
Well, what I'm more concerned with, I've always felt that we're probably understaffed. I think we're understaffed in the admin side because of insurance. I still think most offices, the insurance is such a hated part of the revenue cycle that, they tend to have one person that oversees it. And they really could use, maybe two or three. This is for a solo or not solo, but like a 3 or 4 provider office. So bottom line, I just do think that there's more to be done in the insurance world. Now, this is what bothers me the most, is that we're going to be seeing an increased rate of patients not having their insurance. And if you're not checking eligibility and benefits beforehand, then you're never going to find this out. So let me back up a second. This is an essential part of the insurance coordinator's job, is to make sure the person who's coming in has benefits and that they're eligible. And what we're seeing now with COVID, unfortunately, a lot of people have lost their jobs. And so that means they've lost their coverage. And for the ones who have lost their coverage, the carrier actually may not even know that they've lost their coverage, because the HR departments, who are either not working or they're working on a skeleton crew basis, they're the ones who have to inform the carriers on who's covered and who's not. And if that's not being done regularly, then all of a sudden, maybe a month or two later, Sally at the HR department says, "Oh, geez, I need to update because we've had a lot of people that have quit or have been fired." Now she updates that they don't have coverage, but yet you just saw them for an appointment. So even though you may have checked and said the carrier told you that they had benefits, unfortunately, you may find out that they didn't actually have benefits, and then you get that old refund request, which we all really hate getting. So I am concerned with that. And it's one of the few pieces of information that I put out that I don't have a solution for. I just don't, because this is nothing we can control. I can't control Sally, running, behind in her jobs in the HR department. So I really don't know how to prepare us for this other than, hey, it's going to come, and just roll your eyes and go, shoot, here it is.
Well, okay. So just to brainstorm that for a second. What if when the patient comes in, they have some kind of a legal document that says, "I understand that in these uncertain times, if I have lost my dental benefits, then I am 100% obligated to pay my full fee."
So in the initial paperwork that they have made, that they signed with you, the initial financial policy, that language is usually in there. And if it's not in there, we need to put that in place. So every patient coming in should have signed something that says, "I am aware that if my insurance doesn't cover it."
Yeah, they may not remember that, though.
No, of course not. And so it might be a good idea to say, hey, we need to make sure that we just have this, back in place, that maybe we'll just have you update, because of all of this, we're updating all of our forms with you. I mean, if you want to put that in there, that's fine. It's going to be another form to fill out. But again, we need to cover ourselves. I think one of the best things to do is to be real clear and say, has anything happened with your benefits? Were you laid off? Is there a chance that the insurance carrier is going to tell me that you're not covered? Be real honest about that, because the patients, they're already strapped. They don't want to get a bill from you later
that's
on.
why I think if I were in the office, I would be doing that when I call to confirm.
Yes. Well, if you call to confirm.
True. Well, hopefully you do.
Right. Well, and right now everybody's getting rescheduled by phone. So I think, yes, you could get that in there. And, that's really feasible for a small office. But when you're a big office, you're just trying to get the schedule filled. I know some offices right now are putting out, here, schedule electronically, and you don't even get to talk to the patient. They pretty much, they have it automated, which is a beautiful thing until it doesn't work, right?
Until COVID-19 hits.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, I think, in fact, I was going to tell you, just before we decided to record the podcast, I had a client and I said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to do a podcast with Teresa Duncan." She goes, "Oh, Teresa, I love the information she puts out." And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "What are you going to talk about?" And so I told her, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, we just had our team meeting. We didn't even think about that." So just FYI, I think there's a lot of people that are really so concerned about, as they should be, getting all the materials in place and the PPEs and trying to figure out what that's going to look like. In the midst of that, you can't forget that your patients may have lost their job Therefore, they may have lost their benefits. And I would sure make that a point of a question when I call to confirm, which is why I would call to confirm if I could.
If you could, yeah. And I mean, they're all going to be impossibly busy. And, not all team members are being brought on.
True.
They're not being brought back immediately. I'm hearing a lot of offices that are planning to open to only production. They're only going to have the hygienist and assistant come on board until, there's some actual revenue being generated. It's weird.
I've heard a lot of staff
right?
doesn't want to go back.
Well, yeah, that's a whole different podcast,
I know.
Right? And another thing that I am concerned about, of course, the money side of it is, are we going to be a little bit more lenient on payment plans with patients? And the knee-jerk reaction is, yes, we need to make this as good as we can on patients. And Susan, you might be different on this, but I feel that we need to not be that lenient, just a little bit lenient, but honestly, everybody's bending over backwards right now, and we get that, but there are quite a few people who have been working all along. So I just don't want to do all sorts of, forgiveness and all that. I mean, I know that sounds horrible, but I don't.
Well, it's hard to pay the bills if you forgive everything. Webinars
and
for free and podcasts for free.
I like being, the person who protects the office. And this is one of those things where somebody has to be the bad guy. One thing that I will tell you is that if your patients are considering taking on some big bills, we're going to see a lot of people have hits to their credit in a little bit. I think we know that. If you are planning on doing something like that with a patient, encourage them to go ahead and apply for care credit based on their credit now, because the credit down the road may not be helpful. And that line of credit just sits there until it's ready to be used. So that's something I would definitely talk to your patients about sooner than later. Well,
and this goes back to what I think I've said on every single podcast so far. The first major ding to your credit is missed payments. And so please make sure that you and your staff and encourage your patients, if you get to that point in the conversation of talking to them, to make sure that they make minimum payments. Because that will hit their credit. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it's going to be a weird time going forward as far as trying to get loans, because they're going to be maxed because of the revenue and the income for them. The salaries and the wages aren't just going to be what they've used to been. That's going to be tough.
I do think we're going to see a lot of people come back in and get their cleanings. I think that we're definitely going to see that. People want to get their 2 cleanings per year or whatever they think they're supposed to get. The cosmetic dentistry, Susan, you remember 2008, the recession that then everybody was doing cosmetic dentistry and full quadrant dentistry and all that kind of stuff. Don't be surprised to go back to single crown, single filling, single this, single that, because that's what we did in 2008. So it's not like you would, as the treatment coordinator, have screwed up. This is the natural cycle.
Almost every 10 years. Because it happened in 1998 too. The oil and gas industry took a dive then. And so, it's like every 10 years, something big happens that causes us to regroup, recircle the wagons and figure out what we need to do. Mm-hmm. So what do you think? How do you think membership plans are going to play into all of this?
I think they're going to be really critical for an office who's planning on leaving the networks. And, my phone's been ringing off the hook with doctors saying, how do I get off this network? How do I get off this network? And the reality is that's emotional right now. So instead of saying, I'm going to send in all the paperwork and get off of these networks now, let's put the membership plans in place so that it's ready to go when you do decide to get off the plans. You're going to take a hit going off the plans, but my counterpoint to that is you're taking a hit now.
And my thought is for the patients that have lost their jobs and do not have insurance benefits any longer, if you had a membership plan in place to help them, that might be a really good solution for them.
I think so. And I think it's not so new now. I think a lot of people expect you to have that. They've heard advertising on it. They've seen it, in their local newspapers and all of that. What I will say is, and talking to the companies who administer these plans, we are all in agreement that the plans that are out there are not really well priced, to be honest. I'm seeing a lot of, $249, $299 a year. And when you go back and run your numbers, I don't think that's enough. I really don't to cover. I think you might be operating at a loss. So you have to look at that and see if it is making sense for you. Now, this is for the person who doesn't necessarily get a whole bunch of work done. If they get a whole bunch of work done, it's worth it because that's money that would not be coming in otherwise. And if it did, it would be coming in at a much lower rate. So I'm good with that. But for the families that are providing just, cleanings and the preventive stuff, you might actually be operating at a loss.
That's a good point. So how do they calculate what they need to start their membership plan?
Well, you have to take a look at your fees and what your average fee is for that, and then take the number of covered patients who are on these plans, and then how much was produced for those patients. So I recommend that you put them in a different payment type in the software. And I know there's at least one of the companies that make you do that. I would rather you have it called out differently because we need to be able to run that report. So there has to be something differentiating so that you can run that report, and then take a look at how much you collected in premiums. That's the easy part because that's put in as a payment type. But it's really hard to separate how much production was coming from those patients unless you have it assigned to a different billing type.
Good.
So take a look at that. Take a look at the number of people you have, and then just do some simple math. You might want to take out the outliers, the ones who had a lot of work done, because if there's only one or two patients, then that kills your curve. So take those out of the equation and take a look at the vast majority. And that's what I would do. I would take a look and see if it's working. From what I'm hearing, people are realizing that they should be above 300 at least.
Yeah, I had a client the end of last year that was doing a plan for 250, and I went, no, you need to raise that a little bit.
No, yeah, that's really low. Yeah. And the other thing too is, if you're providing pro fees, or not pro fees, 4910s, the periodontal maintenance, and you're doing that 3 or 4 times a year, and that's not a separate charge.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, that's really good information. So what would be your top thing that you would tell them to keep in mind about insurance during the next few months?
It's really important now that you record the reference numbers of all of the calls that you make and keep all of the paperwork that you receive, faxes and all of that. There's a reason why we scan everything into the software. It's because of stuff like this, so we can retrieve it. The reference number, if you've never done this before, or whenever you get on a call with a customer service rep, every call is accorded a reference number so that they can go back and pull that information. And you should ask for that number so that you can recall it yourself. Because should you look at eligibility and they tell you that there's eligibility and it turns out down the road there isn't, then you have this to prove that you did it in good faith and that they should go after the patient. So, you're going to hopefully be able to retain that payment and then have them, duke it out with the patient. There is definitely some case law involved in this, but I would have to really deep dive into it to tell you about it. There's some case law on where the patient is ultimately held responsible, but I think there's some extenuating circumstances to that. But I would just, get all your ducks in a row. Documentation.
Well, I think if you're getting the reference number from the insurance company and you're asking the patient, are you still employed? Have you lost benefits? Then you've covered yourself on both sides, right?
Right. I would think so, but it's always going to be push and shove. And that's what you need to do. And, patients aren't going to want to pay their bill when it's 4 or 5 months down the road or even 2 years down the road, which is definitely what we see some insurance companies do. So.
No, it's
That's
not.
no fun.
And you recently wrote a dental practice success article for ADA. Tell me about that.
I did. So I was really just trying to get people to take a look. I mean, now's a really good time to change up the insurance system. We have always made insurance systems by reacting to the changes insurance has pushed down on us. And that's just, that's business. We're busy. We're not in the business to be insurance producers. And somehow it just kind of turned into that. So I was putting forth that we really need to take a look at how much we are clearing from these plans and is it worth it? And then have that in mind going forward instead of, every day at the end of the day, man, I need to get off this plan. Let's be a little bit more proactive going forward and see if we can have these numbers in mind so that in 1 year or 6 months down the road, you can say to yourself, you know what, I have been tracking this and I know we need to get off this plan. I know, Susan, you and I don't get to listen in on each other's talks, but one of the things I say in my talks is please don't make emotional decisions. Every one of your decisions needs to be made with facts in mind, because the emotional decision is, that's a recipe for disaster.
It is. It is. Any knee-jerk decision like that is reactive and not well thought through.
Well, and if you're feeling that you're being taken advantage of by the carriers, which you may or may not, that's not for me to say, that's for you to say. But if you're feeling taken advantage of, it's hard not to be emotional. If you feel anybody's taking advantage of you, it's an automatic, it's personal, it's deep, and I get it. But making decisions again with that feeling in mind is
you should always run the numbers before you make any decisions. Figure out how many patients you have on that plan. That's the one thing I tell them to look at. I'm not an insurance guru. That's why you do what you do. And so, but, I get that question a lot, and I say, well, run your numbers, think it through, look at it from all sides, and then you have to make a decision.
The only factor that is really hard to quantify in these reports, the only thing that I feel is more subjective is I ask the insurance coordinator, which plan seems to take most of your time? That's the one thing that's hard to measure, but that makes a big difference. So I'm looking at two different plans, and I'm trying to decide between which one. If she tells me up front that she spends most of her time appealing decisions from this carrier, it's clear that I need to get rid of this carrier because they're causing more work, which is a cost that's hard to quantify when you're only looking at insurance.
That's a really huge cost.
Very huge. You guys, dentists are always saying, what are they doing up front? They seem like they're just sitting and they're on the phone all the time. Feels like we're locked in battle a lot of times.
They are on the phone appealing to the insurance companies. So, well, tell me, during this lull and in the next 6 months, 7 months, what can you do for the practices? What can you help them with?
Well, so I have an online course. If you're looking to learn more about insurance, there's an online course that you can take. There are webinars I've been giving. There's free webinars on my site. There's some paid webinars if you follow the links that may cost you more, but I have a ton of free webinars on my site. What I have available is there are offices that will make an appointment with me, and it's $2.99 an hour, and I can go over anything that you really want to go over as it pertains to the insurance systems. And even before COVID, I had a lot of offices that wanted to just meet twice a year to make sure everything was okay, take a look at their numbers. And I'm suspecting, and I think you're going to see it too, Susan, I think now doctors are going to really want to take a look at numbers because it really hit everyone in the face that cash is king. And we need to make sure that our cash flow is protected. So I suspect I'm going to be busy with just even the private appointments.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think just as needed, to look at it. And that's the beauty of being a PRN consultant is what I call it.
Right. Yes. Well, and if we get back to doing in-person meetings, that's what you and I do. We love to speak. And so I'm available to speak. But here's the thing. I think I'm going to be doing a lot more virtual study club meetings because I don't know. Our meeting industry is going to, that's a whole different podcast.
No kidding.
Susan.
Well, I have some availability this year and I know you do too. We've had some holes in our schedule completely.
Holes for miles.
Yeah, the landscape for the speaking this year is really slim. So, and it's okay. I mean, you and I both understand why. It's hard to pay the bills on why, doesn't it?
Well, and I'm enjoying time with, Noah's home from college. He's taking online. So I am enjoying it. And it looks like, of course, he's home through the next year. So I can't complain too much. I mean, I still do, Susan. I still call you to complain, but I shouldn't complain too much.
No, and it's been really good. It's been good to have that time. I work out of the house all the time when I'm not speaking, so it hasn't been any different for me. But it is kind of weird to have everybody sheltered in place. I do miss my Friday night with Mariano's, so with my peeps. But again, tell me how they can find you.
Odyssey, mgmt.com, Odyssey Management, and on Facebook, Odyssey Management on Facebook. So I tend to update Facebook and Instagram a lot more frequently than my website, just because I feel like Facebook is sort of where my blog is. And I have a podcast that Susan's been a guest on. It's called Nobody Told Me That. And not only do we talk about insurance, but we talk about other stuff too. So you can be an insurance geek or not an insurance geek, and you can still have a good time.
And your book, again, is on Amazon.
Oh, it is on Amazon. It's also on my website too. Awesome. So if you know what, why don't we do this? If you use the code newsletter and buy it off of my website, you will get $3 off, which covers the cost of shipping. And so you're welcome to do that. And it's called Moving Your Patients to Yes, Easy Insurance Conversations. It's all about how to talk to your insurance patients, which, it's a whole different conversation. It really is. You have to address different needs, and you have to be a little bit more understanding on certain factors.
And that's the coupon code newsletter.
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I have my books still that were purchased for the Henman that I'm selling. I have boxes sitting behind me, by the way. So I have the QuickBooks in Your Practice 2020 that's still available for 40% off. That's $71.40 off the regular price. In fact, people that have purchased the 2020 not knowing that it was on sale, I gave them a refund because it's on sale. So it's like, I got.
You're so ethical.
Yeah, I should probably speak on that. But anyway,
right.
I also have the Money In, Money Out available on my website now, just like you put yours on, and it's $21. It's not on sale on Amazon, but it is on sale on my website. If you use the coupon code COVID, all caps 19, COVID-19, then you will get those prices. So that's the books that are on mine. And I've sold a few. That's been really nice. I still have a lot.
I mean, it's a good time to read. So, and I love your book, not because I wrote the word for it, but I do really love your book.
So this is how that came about. I have to tell the story, and this is my version. And so Teresa called me up when she heard Money In, Money Out was going to be finished and published, and she said, "Who wrote your foreword for you?" And I said, "I'm not going to have a foreword." And she goes, "Yes, you are, and I'm writing it." So I didn't really have an option. It wasn't my book at that point. Apparently it was Teresa's book. But anyway.
I don't remember it.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't. Isn't that convenient? Anyways, I do want to wrap up and say there is no time to panic right now. I know that we're all in a spot that we've never been before. And yes, it feels really weird. And now we have this like two diverse camps, people who are afraid to go back into the environment and those that are very angry and bitter about the business aspect of what's happened. And so we just kind of have to go with the flow with everything and try to help each other. I will say that it was really amazing. There's a group of consultants and speakers that got together and produced a video to try to be a soothing balm balm. That's an ALM to the dental industry as a whole. Our hearts go out to you guys. And I'll tell you, the script from that came from having a conversation with a dentist who had only been in practice 6 months and called me in tears. And so it was like you're compelled to do something then because you know that they are not the only one that's in that situation. And if you're in that situation, our heart goes out to you and we will do everything we can to help you be successful when we get back in the game of everything happening. That video was on my website. And so if you have not seen that video, it's really good. My website, susangunnsolutions.com, in case you didn't know. Would love for you to see that. I'm sure you've seen it. It's been all over Facebook, and it's just really cool to be with my peeps I love so much in that video. Anyways, Teresa, thank you so much.
Thank you. I love spending time with you. You know that. So anytime you need a guest, let me know.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really enjoyed it. And thank you guys for listening. And again, if we can help you in any way, Teresa's email is teresa@odysseymanagement.com. Odyssey, let me spell that.
Odyssey MGMT.
Yeah. So ODYSSEY mgmt.com. And mine is Susan at Susan Gunn with 2 N's, not one, solutions, more than one solution.com. And if we can help you in any way, shoot us an email, because that's what we're here for. We're not going anywhere, not at least until May 11th. So anyways, you guys take care. Thank you, Teresa. Have a good time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye.
That's a wrap for this podcast of Money In, Money Out. Thanks for listening. Be sure to write down the most valuable tip you learned today so you don't forget it. And remember, you can find out more about all the valuable books and services Susan has to offer at www.susangunsolutions.com.